Hello, everybody. So, welcome. As promised, we have the Roshar lore video. This has to get uploaded to YouTube just because it won't fit anywhere else with how long it's going to be. So, if anybody like random that's not in the group stumbles upon this, this is just lore for the D&D group. But yeah, if anyone random stumbles upon this and is interested in it, just let me know. But anyways, all right. So the six of you, hello. Return to Roshar. So I want to give a little bit of setup and lore about like the general things that have been happening and each kingdom specifically in the realm. I think this particular should be particularly useful for Brandon just because you're new to the world. But there should be important stuff in here for everybody. Eric as well since he joined um, later on into the last campaign. So first of all, one change. I am retconning the 60 years from the end of last campaign. That is going to be 40 years. So just so everybody knows, the characters from the last game won't be quite as old now. So this is 41 years after the Battle of Silvercrest because there was the 1 year time skip where all of the last characters were in their little pocket dimensions. So it's been 41 years since the final battle of Silvercrest took place. The heroics of the Blades of the Morning Sun um, happened, and the realm has definitely changed. The Emperor of the Regalian Empire, and I guess for recollection's sake, there's the map. I'll point to each realm as I go through it. Actually working on doing an updated version of the map, but that's what we got for the moment. Um, so yeah, the Emperor Gareth gave all the other kingdoms their independence. So there are a total of 6 kingdoms in the realm. The one over here, Aslan, is a entirely elvish kingdom, which technically wasn't like subservient or part of the Regalian Empire, but all the other ones were. For you guys in last game, you spent a lot of your time in Regalia over here. Drawland is within there as well. So it's kind of meant to do the capitals and then like the different kind of cities and surroundings around it. So all 4 of these kingdoms are now independent allies. They have various levels of alliances with each other and with Regalia. So yeah, I'm just gonna run through and go through each of them and give you guys a bit of a overview of them, and anything super specific. I don't want to get super deep into the reads here. So I would like everybody to kind of pick a general kingdom that you're from. You don't have to be like from the city in it. You don't have to be like from the capital. But I would like everyone to kind of pick and choose which place you like to be from. So I'm gonna give you a bit of a background on them, and then if you have any questions about it, you can text me and message me, and we can iron out like little details. Um, but yeah, so for the realm itself, the gods have been removed from the material plane. Besides from the 4 creator gods who aren't very interested in interacting with and taking on, warlocks and imbuing potential clerics with their powers and like getting their word spread. They have been very removed from the realm of man. But all of the other deities have been essentially locked away. They're in their own um, realm. They cannot interact with the material plane. They cannot, directly just grab somebody and bless them and do other things in terms of having an avatar that goes to the material plane or just being an influence in general. Um, so the around the realm prayer attendance in the temples of all these gods has dropped drastically, and there is definitely a level of, I don't want to say paranoia, but just loss of faith and a little bit loss of purpose. And stepping into this, several Druidic tribes have become a lot more popular and have essentially taken the place. Um, and each leader of these tribes, pitches something different for each tribe, which I will go through in their different areas. But besides that, technology has also moved forward. Last will be left off. Flintlock pistols were and a few rifles were like just being discovered. I've Burb, got a hold of one of them. But flintlock pistols and rifles are becoming more popular. They're actually being able to be produced. Um, a lot more metal is being used in general. Technology in terms of like drawbridges, pulleys, that kind of thing are becoming more and more used and more widespread. Um, the Artificers Guild, which we explored a little bit in the last game, but they have become extremely important and crucial to the realm, as they are kind of heading that new development. Magic users, when we started the last game, magic users had really exploded, like the number of them. A lot of powerful magic users were running a lot of the cities and much of the realm. And with their number dwindling to a pretty large extent, it's not unheard of, but it is a lot more rare now. So artificers and tradesmen have definitely gained in popularity, as well as the druids. And other reason why metal production is way up is that trade has increased a lot throughout the different kingdoms, and that was headed up by a place you former players might know. The Arboros Armory has started these large trade routes with the other armories throughout the realm, so they're able to share resources a lot better. Before it was pretty sparse, as many of the dwarves that live in the kingdom have a bunch of them moved northwest to Riftgard, into the mountains, and they don't have much interaction with the rest of the realm. So those pieces of the realm are kind of flourishing right now. Um, but with that in mind, we will run through the realms now. So first we have Revelion down here, an extremely coastal kingdom. Climate here is usually pretty warm, around pretty much year round. They get some snow in like the very winter months, and they rotate between pretty intense rainfall and borderline droughting. So there's a little bit of both, depending on the season. So this is the land that was a lot of it was overtaken in the Great Flood 41 years ago. Um, the sea goddess Umberlee, in a rage, sank most of the city of Tamarel and many of the other surrounding cities that bordered on the coast of the giant ocean. Um, and it caused extensive damage, a lot of loss of life. After this, many of the people that still lived there and survived, their homes were destroyed. A lot of them packed up and moved to Regalia in the more center part of the realm. Um, and as time has gone, they have repaired what they can, but the water level has permanently risen in this area. The city of Tamarel itself now has these kind of permanent canals that run through most of the streets, and the southern and eastern portion of the city that's closest to the ocean, they've built a lot of the new homes um, essentially on stilts to raise it around the water. So a lot of people travel via swimming or via rowboat, and other forms of water travel right around there. They make a lot of their money, of course, through sea trade, as the routes can pretty much easily connect them to particularly Estercrest as well as Regalia, and they can loop around the bottom towards Warrenfeld as well. So a lot of fishing here, of course, and a lot of just trade that way. The capital is called Ketch, and one other little note about it: the locals now call it Taken instead of Revelion. This is kind of this new. It's a different kingdom than it was those 41 years ago. The severe damage that it took from the Great Flood was it caused a lot of long term effects and has changed it. It's officially ruled by a duke, who is actually appointed by Silvercrest. All these other ones have a king or a queen, but this is a appointed duke. His name's Corlet, Collart Ferrand. So he rules in name. In reality, there is a trio of crime syndicates that run pretty much the whole kingdom from the shadows. They are the wealthiest, and a lot of people, if you live there, you basically kind of know this. And again, we won't get into the specifics of the crime syndicates right now. That's something if you want to learn more about, let me know. So they are very much kind of running this. The other kingdoms aren't as much aware of this. They've probably hired inklings. Um, but yeah, they have bought out the official ruler of this place and kind of just do what they want. Next, we have we'll do Aslan, which I'll spend the least amount of time on. This is the Elvish Kingdom over here. They're the northern neighbors of Regalia, and again, they're already independent. This kingdom is made up of about 93% elves, and everybody, all the other species combined are about the other 7%. Real quick, Revelion is extremely diverse. There's all different kinds of races. Nowadays, when people fall on hard times, a lot of the time they will go there to kind of try to make their fortune one way or the other. It's where a lot of desperate souls now go. Um, but back to Aslan, the capital is Ulin Lenora. And this being an elvish kingdom, they live obviously, 400 to 500 years. So in the 40 years, it hasn't felt like too much. They haven't changed very much either. If anything, as a whole, they're just a little bit more closed off from the rest of the realm. It's not somewhere like a lot of the other kingdoms where you can just kind of like pick up and find somewhere to live there. Get a job, eventually like get some land or live in one of the little hostels or buy a small plot or a small home that's been left. Yeah, if you just try to walk in here, especially if you aren't an elf, you will be questioned and potentially, depending on your business, potentially just turned away and not allowed in. The exception to that is Orange Hall, one of the pretty large cities there. They're a little bit more diverse than the rest of them. They're also home of the Knights of Torm, which again, older players, you guys all know this. And so Torm is a deity that several members of the old game worshipped, and they are a pretty large organization that's based off in Orenthal. It's consisting of a few warlocks, mostly clerics, paladins, though. There's a couple exceptions too, like a couple of like artificer types, wizard types, even like sorcerer types that didn't necessarily get their powers from Torm, but worship him. So again, these are the Knights of Torm. As their numbers have started to dwindle a little bit, far less new recruits. They've kind of shifted recently and started doing more outreach, training villagers throughout the realm. Some simple combat maneuvers, potentially providing them with some lower starter tier weapons once they're fully trained up. Because the essentially the capital guard, the Regalian Empire, when they owned all of the other kingdoms, they had their troops, dispersed throughout all the other villages and cities to help protect them. Since everybody has their independence now, all those people went back to Regalia itself. So a lot of the smaller, particularly like the mid-sized towns, are less fortified and less defended than they were those 40 years ago. So they do a lot of outreach and trying to, equip civilians to deal with, whether it just be a bear attack in the wild or, a roving band of marauders, give them a chance to potentially defend themselves. So yeah, if your character is an elf, this one is probably one that we should talk about, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that. Next, we're going to go through Warrenfeld. So this is in the southeast now. Over here, as you can see, it is bordered by the sea and a massive desert. I was doing those, massive desert. C, and C. And the place itself, you can see there's like super deep forests over here that take up a lot of the realm itself. They are yeah, they're mostly covered by these lush forests, swamps. Some of the the most scenic views you're gonna find in Roshar will be in Warrenfeld. The capital is Brimstone, and the king here recently took power. He is a dragonborn named King Varuk. It's an extremely diverse kingdom. It has more so um, of really any of the kingdoms. It has more non-humanoid races. That's where a lot of these types end up kind of gathering. Whether that be Dragonborn, whether that be Kobold, Elephantine, Tabaxi, Kobolds. A lot of times they'll make their way over here. Um, but in any case, massive trees kind of dominate this place, and there are actually a lot of of a couple of the towns and people like as you get further away from like the main cities, there are tree houses that have been built here, that a lot of the citizens live in. And this is where we're going to talk about one of the first druid circles. So there are thousands of druid circles, whether they be whether they have 3 members or 3,000 members. But there are 4 main circles that have kind of dominated now this prayer space, and this has the oldest one in the city of Halloween. This is the Circle of Roots. They emphasize balance and being in the moment, not having your head in the clouds, being present. Um, and they do a lot of work, of course, as all druids do, with nature, but they are probably the most, again, they're the oldest and probably the most in tune with nature than itself, because this is such a wild part of the realm. But the climate here consists of rainfall, lots of it. It leans more cold than warm, but in the summer months it still does get quite warm. But it's just a little more um, west, so it is a little bit just further away from the. I don't want to say the equator because they don't really know if like this is like an Earth type. We just know that this is this landmass. But again, a little bit more cold than warm, but they get a little bit of both. Then we'll do the capital. Sorry, not really capital anymore. So this is Regalia. It is the most populous. The capital is of this kingdom is Silvercrest, and it is still where now King, formerly Emperor Gareth Nightingale, now in his 60s, resides. Um, Again, it's still the hub for trading in the entire kingdom, so it is extremely wealthy. Um, in the past, at the time of the last game, there were a ton of lords and ladies and wealthy great houses, they call them, living here. After Gareth announced that he was going to be, giving all the other kingdoms their independence, many of these lords and ladies left and took their wealth and took their families and took their influence, and as a lot of them came from the other kingdoms, so they returned to there or potentially went somewhere else. It's not even really, um, for some of them, it's not confirmed either way. But many of them returned to their homes. There is still a great amount of wealth though here. Is again, since it's so centralized, many of the trade routes, pretty much all of the trade routes that aren't via the sea, have to go through here. So it is a giant hub for that. The climate changes here more than any of the other places. Because it's so centralized, they get a lot of, in the winter they get snow, they get super cold, but in the summer it gets extremely warm. Um, and so they get the most diverse climate of any of these. Again, largest populace. They have a ton of people that live here. Slight majority would lean to humans, probably about 55% humans, and then 45% all the other species combined. But again, like most of the other kingdoms, it is quite diverse. And the Artificers Guild, which I had mentioned before, which is an extremely influential, powerful, wealthy guild at this point. It's kind of taken the places of a lot of those like great families. Um, just because of their influence on the infrastructure of the land, and with the more limited resources in terms of magic, they have become extremely popular, and important. And the largest druidic circle resides here. This is the Circle of Sanctity. It is the most popular of any of them. It has almost some people would describe it as a cult-like following, and they take on a lot of the teachings of the old pantheon. So a lot of the old deities, whether it be Sylvanas, famous druid deity, um, or Corellion, which is one of the main magical deities. They kind of took those teachings and kind of ran with them and converted them to a more druidic, nature-filled, connected to the earth itself, um, kind of feel. And again, they sucked away a lot of the huge temples that were constructed to these gods in Silvercrest now lay kind of barren, and several of them have actually been converted into makeshift housing for more of the people that moved in, by Gareth authorized that several years back. So that is Regalia. Next is Riftguard. So this is the Northwestern Kingdom, right over here. Hope I'm getting this in frame every time. So you can see there's like little peaks from here. This realm is extremely cold. It is harsh. It is brutal. It snows here most of the year. It gets bitterly cold. There are several times where people have to lock themselves in their castles or their homes, or in a cliffside cave, for several days, even weeks at a time, when the weather gets its worst. Um, you have to be tough to live here. There are mostly the populace here is mostly Goliaths and dwarves. There's of course a little bit of everything else, but between dwarves and Goliaths, they probably take up 75 to 80% of this population, and they are basically always warring. The Goliath and dwarf factions have been going back and forth for about 400 years. The place is in pretty much a constant state of civil war. About 5 years ago, their latest civil war was just ended. This was the longest one yet at around 70 years. Normally they'd go on for 10 to 20. And the Goliath faction actually won this last exchange, and they are now in control of the kingdom. If the pattern holds in another 10 or 12 years, they'll fight again. And after 10 or 12 years of fighting, it might swap over, or it might remain in the Goliath's hands. The old dwarvish king, Vandreg Chainjaw, has been deposed. He was allowed to live, but has been relieved of his king duties. The new queen is Shagar of the Spire Climbers clan. So the Goliaths have taken power, and they have been instituting some changes. Speaking of the Blades of the Morning Sun, they have a headquarters here as well. And they try to be as, in the city of Alto Bosque is where they're located. They try to keep the peace the best they can and stay neutral and just help out the citizens of this kingdom, because between the weather, the civil war, it is difficult to live here. So they try to do what they can for those people. There is also a Druidic circle here, located in the city of Alto Bosque as well. And sorry, the capital is Rathgar's Peak, which is toward the very edge of this massive mountain range that dominates most of this kingdom. If you go over this mountain range, there is more land past it that has not been explored. It is so difficult to actually cross through, even in the warmer months, that no one's ever done it, gone fully across to the other side, explored, and then come back. But the Druidic Circle that is located in Alto Bosque is the Circle of Steel. They are the least popular of the major circles. They embrace this new technology, whether it be the steel in terms of weapons, the guns, or whether it's using the steel and using more newer material for their homes. That helps out a lot with stuff like that. Um, but they focus on this new technology and then sharpening the body against the elements as well as potential foes. That is incredibly important. With the climate itself being so brutal, as well as there being a lot of wild animals and other creatures that, when they were pushed away from the main cities in the realm, a lot of them, out of need for survival, made their way up here. And so there's a lot of danger here. So that's why the circle is incredibly important, or incredibly popular here. But outside of Riftguard, it has very few followers. And finally, we have Estercrest. The capital here is Shinovar. This is the northeastern portion. So right over here. Again, vast cliffs and deserts dominate a lot of this land, but there are, oases and green spots throughout. There's a lot of upwards elevation here as well. Um, but the weather is a little bit of hot and cold. They have definitely a bit of both. It gets extremely cold there and covered in snow in the winters, but it also gets extremely hot during the daytimes, and especially in the summer months, and it is extremely windy there. And they have done very well for themselves, the Kingdom of Estercrest. They have amassed a ton of wealth based on the gems and fabrics that have been taken from the vast mines that run through their large cliff sides as well as their deserts. Um, a lot of orcs have kind of gathered in this place, um, but there are many different species. It's very diverse here as well. And the population has flourished here, especially in the last 20 years. A lot of people moving towards Silvercrest, but also a lot of people moving into Estercrest and Shinovar in particular. One of the other major, so the final major druidic circle is in the city of Bluedale. This one's very popular. They are known as the Circle of Dreamwalkers. And they believe in unlocking your inner peace by accessing the mind and unlocking potential via sleep and potentially doing some dream walking, as their name implies, to unlock the secrets of the body as well as the mind. Estercrest is also important because in the last game it started with the neighboring continent. So past here, after a long stretch, a pretty long stretch of water, there is another continent, another landmass, and it is dominated by a ton of different, more monstrous creatures. But the main population there is Githyanki and Githzerai. And they have all gathered up here, and somewhat frequently, feels like every couple of years, they make an incursion into the realm and they attack. And they usually, since it's the closest to it, especially it's a little harder to get into Revelion. So a lot of times they land in Estercrest and start their battle there. The Yankee and Githzerai are a extremely violent, might is right species, and again, the last game started with them invading, and it was their biggest incursion pretty much ever, at least in recorded history. And they made their way pretty far into the realm itself. And a lot of the last game was fighting them and spurning their um, advances, spurning their advances into the realm itself. But since then, they were forced to retreat. Most of the way through the campaign, they were forced to retreat, and after taking down a bunch of them, but also ejecting a bunch of them from the realm. In the last 41 years, there have been no large-scale attacks. So that leads some people in the realm to believe that they are done. You know, they lost a ton of their troops as they came in. You know, just the sheer amount of space they have to cover. Going from any one of these realms to the other on horseback takes several weeks. So this is a giant piece of land, and it has a ton of people in it. So it's extremely hard for a force, even a force their size, you know, to maintain momentum going through the whole um, realm like this. But again, part of the reason why Estercrest is flourishing as well is they haven't had any of these. They've had a couple of very, very minor skirmishes, but nothing like they had for years and years before even the main invasion came. So some people believe that they're done now, and they're, you know, the last, um, you know, the war that they declared about 44 years ago at this point took too many of the resources, and they figure they can't pull it off. Or some people think that they are gathering again, you know, planning planning it differently this time, and really taking their time and focusing up for one final strike. So that is a little bit on each of the different druidic circles that are kind of dominating the culture of the realm right now, and a little bit on all of the different, you know, kingdoms, a little bit about their, you know, their cultures, their populations, their rulers now. We're obviously going to go into way more detail about this as we get ready and play the game itself. But I wanted to give everybody kind of a general breakdown of what is going on in the realm, and you know, each kingdom itself, because we traveled to each kingdom in the last game, but didn't get to spend an insane amount of time in any of them besides probably Regalia. You know, Drawland is there and Silvercrest is there. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. If anybody has, again, I hope everybody kind of has questions from this, or has something they want to kind of delve into, and has maybe a, you know, a kingdom of origin that they have in mind. I know a couple people already do have theirs in mind, which is fine. But I want this to be helpful for everybody. Let me know what you think. And yeah, I hope everybody can get their character creation done like completely by the end of this month. That's the goal. I want to be able to start asking for, like, as we get into May, I want to see if we can get our little setup slash solo slash, you know, some of them will be solo sessions, some of them will be duo sessions. You know, we already have one duo picked out. I have a feeling I might have a good other duo. But the more information we have, the better we can, you know, plan it. So, yeah, again, if you have questions or want any clarification on any of this stuff, please let me know. I am very interested and eager to hear your thoughts. Um, yeah, props for, I hope everybody got through all of this, and I hope it was pretty concise and informative. But yeah, talk to y'all soon.